Alright, today I want to talk big, bold, beautiful, confident, luxurious. Chrysler C-bodies. Yes, so this is installment number 1, but my number 5 recommendation in my 5-part mini-series for the best budget builds of the last 5 years. If you're meeting me for the first time, I'm Grant Tommy. This is Straight Six Fan, your home for offbeat hot rodding. And yeah, these budget builds are through the lens of what I call offbeat hot rodding. And if you really want to know the criteria, I'm holding these two in this mini-series. Go check out basically my info card over here. This was the intro to the series, and I really took a deep dive into what the criteria. I'm holding all of these cars too, but let's waste no more time and pull up what I like to call the EA Sports player profile sheet. Alright, so overall availability, we're going to score it as a 3, and primarily it's because you really have to zoom out at the C-body level. So that means you got to be willing to take any of the sorts, the Imperial, the New Yorker, the Newport, the Fury 3. If you're not too picky, it's great. You can likely find one of those. Checking in on our second criteria, we're looking at used parts availability, and remember this means both in the junkyard as well as on Facebook Marketplace. And you could almost probably score this as a 2.5 because since we're zooming out at the C-body level at whole, if you're missing a door panel for your Dodge Monaco, what good is it that there's a Plymouth Fury in the junkyard? You know, so things like that. And then you take into account what the demolition derby scene did to these cars. Yeah, maybe it's a little harder to find, but I reached out to Chad with Nobody's Auto here on YouTube. He's my go-to source for used donor cars, and he does in fact have about 8 of these in his yard. So that's why we're scoring this one a 3. For our third category, and this is where this platform really excels, it's the engine modification category. So when you're talking big block Mopar, you've got plenty of options to choose from to up the horsepower and torque capacity. Just for the sake of this series, one of the things I just thought would be interesting is like, let's just price out an Edelbrock Performer RPM intake for each of the motors of each of these choices. Now that doesn't tell the whole story, of course. There's plenty of other things you can do to different motor platforms, but I felt like it was a good point of comparison. And so while these vehicles in stock trim were slugs with 0 to 60 times near the 12-second range, again, there's just a lot of potential to unlock in either a 383 or 440 Mopar, and that's what I think makes these cars so fun. And hey, maybe they'll never be fast, but at least you can do gnarly burnouts with them. Also, take a look at what this guy did with his C-body. I would suspect he probably purchased this car for the price range we're talking about when he got it. I'm not a big fan of the 100-spoke wheels, but think about the price point at which those wheels are, and I just think this represents a pretty good version of buy a car for under $3,800, throw about $2,000 in wheels and tires on it, get a nice stance, and oh my goodness, look at this. Keith Black pistons. This is pretty awesome. And finally, we land in our fourth criteria, which I'm calling basically brakes, steering, and suspension upgrades. And yeah, this is where the platform definitely struggles because, well, first off, if you get a 65 to 70, you're basically talking about 4-wheel drum brakes on a land barge, and that's going to do nobody any good. So you'll want to be north of 1971 to do that. But they do make disc brake conversion kits for these cars, but they check in at about $1,000, and so it gets harder and harder budget build wise to justify $1,000 purchases outside of wheels and tires. And then similarly, the Mopar torsion bar suspension has never been a good starting point for awesome suspension upgrades, so you're going to really struggle there. You're probably most likely looking at another $1,000 coilover conversion kit, or just biting the bullet and saying, you know, signing up for some custom fabrication in the form of airbags. Well, if you heard some squeals along the way, you probably know where that came from, but this is my new life. Trying to be a YouTube creator and a father at the same time, taking advantage of my parental leave. I hope you've enjoyed the first installment here of my top 5 budget builds. Make sure you check in next week. We will unveil what number 4 is, and we will go through the same rundown, and you can start to, well, you know, agree with me, disagree with me, leave nasty comments down below, or do whatever people do. Hey, but you know what? That makes that brings people here. The more comments, the better. So I'd love to hear from you what you think about my number 5 choice for a budget build here in the 2025 era. But otherwise, that's gonna do it for this episode. Go ahead and check out some of the previous versions here on the end screen. But to all my 6 fans out there, thanks for watching.